Hello everybody, welcome to another lesson in macroeconomics. Today we're going to be talking about business cycle. Excuse me. This is the fluctuation of the real GDP of a country over a period of time. As you can see in our graph here, we have on our y-axis the real GDP, on our x-axis we have time. This green line here is the trend line, which represents the average rate of growth, the ideal way the GDP of a country should increase. So now I'm going to talk about the four phases of the business cycle. All right. We have expansion, the peak, then we have a recession, then we have the trough. So let me go into the details more about these. So expansion, this is where the GDP rises more rapidly than the average rate of growth. Okay. Then as we can see here, the peak is the highest point before the GDP begins to decline. Then contraction is the decline of the GDP, which is also called a recession. And a prolonged recession is called a depression. And then finally, we have the trough, which is the lowest point, the end of the recession and the beginning of an expansion, which represents recovery. So as you can see, the cycle begins from peak to trough and to peak. So that's how the cycle goes. Peak to trough and peak. Okay. Now, as we can see on this graph here, using the business cycle, we can see how inflation and unemployment are being handled by a country. As you can see, this business cycle here, it's an unstable economy. We've got a very high peak, which represents the government failing to keep inflation at low levels, and we've got a low trough. This shows that the government is failing to keep unemployment at low levels. Right? So whenever you see a business cycle and you see a very high peak, the shaded region under represents inflation. As you can see, it's like the economy is overheating. We have a boom, as you can see here. The boom just means that the GDP is expanding, is increasing at a high rate. And then after the peak, we have a burst, which signals that the GDP is beginning to decline. So that's that about the business cycle. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.